So here's the thing about ADHD rage in women that nobody wants to acknowledge. It gets blamed on everything except what's actually causing it. We have rage, real rage, neurological, full system overload rage. But instead of understanding it as a symptom of how our brains process the world, society decided a long time ago that rage in women must mean something else. Must mean we're emotional, dramatic, hormonal, hysterical, unstable. And that decision, that casual dismissal of our experience as a personality flaw instead of a neurological response, that's the reason millions of women spent decades thinking they were fundamentally broken instead of understanding they had ADHD. Let me explain what actually happens when a woman with ADHD hits capacity. Your nervous system is already running at maximum because you're processing everything, every sound, every light flicker, every sensory input that neurotypical brains filter out. You're maintaining focus through sheer willpower, while your brain is simultaneously running 47 background tabs of anxiety and worry and things you forgot to do. You're masking, performing normalcy, which takes an enormous amount of energy. You're managing expectations, managing other people's emotions, managing the constant low-level shame that comes with not functioning the way you're supposed to. You're at 99% capacity. Then something small happens. You drop something, someone interrupts you, a notification pings, your kid asks you a question, someone sighs near you, and you explode. But here's what happens next. Instead of someone understanding that your nervous system just hit maximum overload, they look at you like you're crazy. They ask, "Are you getting your period?" They tell you to calm down. They say you're being dramatic or overreacting or hormonal. And suddenly the rage isn't just about the overload. Now it's about the fact that nobody believes you. Nobody sees what's actually happening. They've taken your neurological response and repackaged it as a character flaw, a hormonal problem, emotional instability. And you start believing them. You start thinking there's something wrong with you for being angry. You start trying to suppress the rage instead of understanding it. You apologize for having a nervous system that works differently. You internalize the shame that society is very eager to give you. Here's what makes this specific to women. The gaslighting is systematic. ADHD rage in boys and men, it's often excused as boys being boys, or he's just intense, or he's passionate. It's gendered as strength, leadership, assertiveness. ADHD rage in women, that's hysteria. That's hormones. That's she's on her period, give her space. That's she's crazy. That's something broken inside her that needs to be fixed or managed or suppressed. So women with ADHD develop this thing where we try to hide our rage instead of understanding it. We apologize for it, we minimize it, we accept the diagnosis of hormonal or emotional instead of pushing for someone to actually look at our brain and understand what's happening there. And in doing that, we miss decades of diagnosis, decades of support, decades of understanding. Because here's what's actually happening in the ADHD female brain. You're experiencing sensory overload that nobody can see. You're running on emotional fumes because masking in a gendered world takes more energy. You're managing other people's expectations, managing the shame of not being good enough, managing the gap between how you feel internally and how you're performing externally. And when you explode, when the rage comes, it's not because you're hormonal. It's because your nervous system finally said, "I cannot process one more thing." But society has given you other language for that rage. Hormonal, emotional, dramatic, hysterical, crazy, overreacting. And because you've internalized those words, you don't advocate for yourself. You don't say, "I have ADHD and my nervous system is overloaded." You say, "I'm sorry, I don't know what's wrong with me." And the doctors don't push either, because they've been trained to see female rage as a psychiatric problem, not a neurological one. So they prescribe anxiety medication or antidepressants instead of actually looking at whether you have ADHD. The thing that kills me is that this pattern starts so early. A boy with ADHD who explodes at school is spirited or needs structure or has behavioral issues that need management. A girl with ADHD who explodes at school is emotional or sensitive or dramatic or needs to learn to control herself. He gets referrals for evaluation. She gets told she needs to be nicer. He gets diagnosed. She gets told to smile more. By the time women reach adulthood, we've internalized the message so completely that we're actively working against ourselves. We're apologizing for our rage before anyone else even registers it. We're explaining it away. We're accepting explanations that make no sense. And the rage itself? The rage gets blamed on hormones so thoroughly that women start tracking their menstrual cycles to see if the rage was really hormonal or if it was something else, as if it can't be both, as if ADHD plus hormones plus sensory overload plus masking plus lack of sleep plus burnout all together somehow cancels out and means we're just hormonal. That's not how neurology works. That's gaslighting with a scientific veneer. Let me be very clear about something. Hormones are real. Female hormones do affect mood and energy and emotional regulation. That's not in question. But ADHD is also real, and sensory overload is real, and the specific exhaustion of masking your neurodivergence in a gendered world is real. When a woman with ADHD explodes, it's not because of hormones, it's because her system hit capacity. Hormones might make that capacity a little smaller on certain days, but they're not the cause. They're not the explanation. They're not the thing that should make people dismiss what's actually happening. And here's what absolutely enrages me about this. The gaslighting keeps women sick. It keeps them undiagnosed. It keeps them ashamed. It keeps them managing their own neurology as a moral failing instead of understanding it as a difference that needs accommodation and understanding. Women are told their entire lives that their anger is a problem, that their intensity is too much, that they need to be smaller, quieter, nicer. And when that rage explodes out of them, when their system finally says no more, they get told it's hormones, it's drama, it's instability. And so they spend decades trying to fix themselves instead of understanding themselves. ADHD rage in women isn't hysteria. It isn't hormones. It isn't a character flaw or emotional instability or something you need to manage better. It's what happens when your nervous system, which is already running at maximum, hits capacity. It's what happens when your brain processes the world differently and nobody ever told you. It's what happens when you've been masking and performing and shrinking yourself for so long that one small thing tips the balance. And the fact that society has decided to call it hormonal instead of neurological isn't a medical opinion. It's a choice to dismiss women's experiences instead of understanding them. So when you rage, you're not broken. You're not dramatic. You're not hysterical. You're overloaded, and the system gaslit you into thinking that was your fault.